Okay, and uh, today's lesson is called I start to call methodology. It's actually part of the introduction to history. I decided to open just presentation for the first, actually second graders at bilingual studies, which is completely the same notes that you had, only maybe a couple of small differences that I'm going to point it out. In this introduction to history, we'll deal with the definitions, with how it is produced, and what are the parts of history, and actually how to write it. And this is important part of this methodology of creation of the science of history, about writing about history, analyzing it, and its graphy. So it's not history itself, but it's the approach, the attitude, the discourse. I mean, the way how you speak about and how you especially write history. So this is very important for this. Of course, these are from the book, studying materials. You know, the definitions, we pass through all of them, so I don't think we have to repeat them. So it's science about the past. And actually in English, we still call it like the study of the past, because in Slovak we can discuss whether it is science or not. What you must have written in your methodology and what you have to write down and tell us what methods you used in your or research. The techniques are the ways you how you method is the approach that you pick up.
Pán učiteľ, môžem vás prerušiť na chvíľu? Veľmi sekáte.
Thing is that in every áno, kto ma prerušil? Dobre, to bude pravdepodobne najlepšie. Majú ostatný problém, prosím vás?
Aj mne to sekalo.
Dobre, ja som sa presunul. OK. Ja som sa presunul už úplne vedľa vysielač, neviem, to asi bude nejaký externý problém najskôr, tak dúfam, že to už teraz pôjde. Zlepšilo sa to trošku?
Asi áno.
Viete, decka?
Áno, už je to lepšie.
Je to lepšie trošku? Už je to lepšie, dobre. OK, uvidíme budúci týždeň, no dneska je pekne, tak malo by to byť všetko OK. Dobre, čiže neviem, čo ste počuli posledné, ja sa teda vrátim k prezentácii. Okay, so the thing was that in your like research, you have to have these techniques and methods. Every science have these things, and you have to describe them. And this is the most important thing, because describing and providing information about your scientific process, what techniques and methods you use in particular step, so it makes your work, your research, like validate, like valid, I would say, so more reliable and more truthful. For this thing, in the times of enlightenment in the 18th century, actually since the times of scientific revolution in the 16th century, they describe the steps of scientific process that you have in here. So if you probably remember from the beginning of the school year, that at the beginning you have to set some goal, the aim of your research, during which you should give some claim, maybe some statement, that we call in science hypothesis. It is actually kind of a not a guess, but maybe something you would like to find out. And to find it out, you have to guess, like maybe it works like this, maybe this happened. So let's find it out whether it is true or not. So let's analyze it. And this hypothesis is the beginning. So also at oral examination, you'll have to tell us what is the hypothesis in here. Okay. Then the other step is listing. Listing is making a list of all the literature, all the sources, resources, all the people, all the information you have. You have to gather them. So in this way, you should have maybe the list and papers, loads of plenty of these books and so on. And from here, you realize that it is too much. So again, you'll have to tell us that during your seminar work, during your oral research, how you were picking up the books and websites and people and archives and maybe having some other materials that you use for this. Uh, okay, maybe you had some artifacts, for example. So this is all listing. You have to describe it in this chapter about methodology of your work. From here, usually you realize that there is like too much information, and you have to pick up some of these cherries, and you have to excerpt them, čiže vycucnúť, vytiahnuť ich. From this is another step, another phase in scientific process that is called excerption, excerptia. So you know it very well. And again, we will ask you, actually, I will ask you, why you picked up this book and not the other one? Why you didn't use this website, for example? Why you didn't ask the other people? Those who consult with me, your seminar works today, it's Nati, for example. So I added her some more people. I don't have contacts, but we have to try out to how to get to know with them, get to in touch with them, how to seize information, because we realize that we have very good project for the experiment, some survey, but we need to have it valid. So for that case, we realize that we miss some people, some experts in our list of this oral project. Do you know what I mean? Do you understand? I believe so. So from this excerption, there is analysis needed. So you need to be excellent in this thing, that how to analyze whether this book is good for you or not. It's sufficient, insufficient, and so on. If propaganda is there, or maybe some facts are not mentioned, and so on. This is very important phase, because it gives you actually the core of the knowledge, the core of the information that you are going to use. In this way, still you're looking for the answer for your hypothesis, for the question set at the beginning. So for that moment, you need to try out whether the facts that you excerpted, or maybe you realized or you created, can work, if they are true for history. For that case, you have to use other techniques that we have in here, which is analysis, which is deduction, which is analogy or experiment. And these are not only techniques, but they are also the methods that you use. Čiže metóda analýzy, dedukcie, analogy, it actually you can find for analysis. You just try to pick up and get the meaning, the point of it, the origin. Deduction, if you guess the meaning from some logical, historical, maybe empirical way, for example. Analogy is usually some phenomena that is similar somewhere else, in geography, in other territory, in other times, for example, in behavior of some other people. And analogically, it means that probably if there are similar conditions, so it can happen, it may happen, it could be influenced by similar things than in here. Okay, so these kind of methods, you can of course Google and look for them, and you'll find them, many of them. In this way, the best way is to try out the experiment if it's possible. Of course, we cannot do experiment in most of history works. That's why we use surveys, we analyze historical sources, we talk to people, we try to evaluate those things. Of course, sometimes you have chance to make experiment with, for example, reconstruction of some living history things, for example, or maybe reenactment and so on. For our case, usually this experiment is based upon your hypothesis. So what you want to do in practical way, what should be this synthesis? So in this way, there must be this practical part in analysis. For you, it can be, for example, some suggestion, some plan for something in a museum, in the book, in a video, and this is the things that we are trying out even right now. We have a lot of things. Sometimes experiments fail, as you realize, because imagine that this can be a project for somebody, a YouTube video that they are going to record, and suddenly you got problem with your internet connection. So then you have to repeat the experiment, and again you're trying out. So sometimes hypotheses are not proved, they're failed. Sometimes you realize that you have to change your methods and techniques, and so I had to change my place in the flat to have this better thing. So everything must be also written in your methodology. You have to describe it at what were the problems. For example, you wanted to speak to your grandfather about socialism, and he was not very willing to speak about, or maybe he suffers some memory loss, or maybe he is like influenced by propaganda or so on. And this is the thing. These are the things that you have to accept, and of course you have to remember. So we would like you to talk about also these troubles and how you try to struggle with this analysis, experimental, practical part, from which you should get some ideas that cannot be offered to everybody. This is the thing that you will have only 7 minutes, and let's say during 1 minute you'll have to tell us maybe some basic results. So what have you found out? What are the opinions people about socialism? Does this crossbow work, for example? Show us this YouTube video, at least some small part as a sample. And this is called generalization, from the word general, to make it general, to pick up these ideas and make them like one general statement that includes all the information around. I believe it's clear for you. So you said that, for example, it works. Socialism was bad, but people didn't realize it if they were okay with the regime and so on. Finally, your practical part should be, in the end, even real thing that you create. Of course, for history, doesn't have to be a real thing like a project, like a machine, of course. But today, especially, we have plenty of things that we can do. Not only writing the book, but you can send your work to such a competition. You can upload a video to the YouTube. You can install some exhibition at some museum, at your school, at some different place. You can have a project for restoring a castle, for example, or some village, or making some maybe like fun park, for example. So there are plenty of things, and this is synthesis. Synthesa, it means the final product, making the final real practical thing that is in here. So also this is your part for your seminar work, that what you want to do and how do you want to change it. Okay, Nati, for example, she got a project about veterans, syndrome, and for that case, it can be maybe, let's say, website, for example. It can be series of videos for people who suffered it, so it can be helpful for them. Okay, so these are interesting things you can apply from biology, chemistry, history, archaeology to anything. In the end, this synthesis should prove your hypothesis back. So we made a circle in here around, and we'll see whether it works or not. And eventually in history, they should be true. But you know that in history it's difficult because there are many opinions and attitudes. We talked about it for a lot of times. So there are actually many truths and lies in history about some event, and it depends on the watcher, on the audience, upon the audience. Okay, what else do we have in here? Okay, so I got some link, and probably this should be more detailed description and science bodies, or G, science fair project, science fair steps of the scientific method. So try to maybe Google this steps of the scientific method. From the things I picked up, the thing. So ask the question, go background research, construct a hypothesis, test with an experiment. Does procedure work? Yes, no. And again, you have to come back, analyze the data, draw to conclusions, result align with hypothesis or not at all, and so on. Communicate results, so present them. And I can come back and change the hypothesis. So this is important thing, that sometimes you realize that the hypothesis probably didn't work, so you should change it. But don't forget to mention in methodology that you have to evaluate your own research and change it according to the things you have. And I really strongly recommend you to read this part, because you have described things that what are in here. Of course, they're not history, but hypotheses and experiments and how you can produce it. Okay, so pretty easy peasy thing. I believe it works. Pozriem sa, či nemáte nejakú otázku. Všetko funguje, dúfam, bez problémov už teraz. Okay, fine. So let's move on. Let's move on with our scientific process. I always recycle this Noam Chomsky quote. As you know, it's actually kind of denying this quote that it's not a science; it's more storytelling. History has to be science, has to be truthful, because otherwise it can serve for policy and propaganda, and it's being abused by these. So, of course, what are the things? So we have all these things that for the definitions. I don't think that we need to restore them. We have to come back to them. You also remember that we have these a couple of other, that was my own sources, historians, histories. Yeah, we know it all, and even your own guys. So this is also Karmada and Paťa. Trošku to posledných vidno. Okay, so you remember you were heroes, you're famous among the second graders and third graders. This is something that I added that you haven't seen, because I found this very nice infographics by some Czech academical university studies for methodology of history. And what is history? So it's not so easy, of course. And they divide it in three parts, and that is academic history, like university histories, then it's public history, and it's popular history that we actually mentioned. So what are there? In academic history, of course, you analyze what happened, how, why, and so on. And of course, what they use. So, of course, books and education and museum, historical places, and so on. Public history is how history is accessible to the others, and how people like it. Doesn't have to be a force, but when you just travel abroad and you got just some educational trips, for example, you come to Rome, so probably you're not going to tell the locals that you hate history. So why do you come to Rome? That's why you got trips, reenactment, okay, media, movies, TV and YouTube, documentaries, and so on. And then popular history, what people believe and what they like. And this is very important because it's very influential. And you know, that's also I forced you sometimes, Dano, for example, to have this YouTube video, because this is actually very good way how you can influence people, how you can give your opinion about something. So that's why podcast and historical fiction, Juraj Červenák, musicals, video games, and so on. So this is really cool. For them, look at this. At study history, everything got its own meaning. So you can start with this academic history, but your practical part can be here in popular parts, even in video games, for example. So in this way, if you talk about this, you come from the archives and from some testimonies and from some collective memory and collective opinions, you come to the things that they're almost like political content in here, and judicial content. So who we are and why we told these stories, and why do we need to remember them to create this historical memory. And that's the thing. So things are happening, and some things are being forgotten, and that's the past. Everything is past. So that's interesting to talk about. One thing that I also haven't mentioned to you, it's alternative history and counterfactual history. Maybe I did tell you about Dano Halai when he attended a competition such, and actually he was like ultimate winner of regional round, regional qualifications. Only the sources were about like 3 pages, and you know that's possible. But when he got to the finals, to the Slovak finals, so 2 of the judges in jury, in committee, they wanted to like award him with at least one of the first, the second, the third place. But the head of the committee, he was historian who never met like with international histories. He dwelled somewhere in Michalovce doing on regional history of like interwar period. That was all, and he had no idea about this counterfactual history. And he told him that he's like making fake history, just vymýšľajú. So in this way, also, if you come to the part that you use like other interdisciplinary sciences or maybe not very traditional forms, it's very important in methodology to prove that how you work, that you know the knowledge. Because I told Daniel, get ready for this, because some people may not like it. Many history don't like this counterfactual history. What would happen if? Because yeah, it's like Sheldon Cooper with Amy playing a game like what would happen if there were no penguins in Denmark or whatever, you know. But this is the thing that we really try to analyze what would happen if Franz Ferdinand d'Este wouldn't be killed, you know, what would happen hadn't be killed. And you actually have to study Franz Ferdinand d'Este political opinions, his plans, his negotiations with Hungarian, Magyar, Slovak, or Czech delegations. And actually, in this way, you actually analyze the results and consequences. Okay, so you can promote a couple of probable scenarios that may happen, but you don't say that that would happen, but couple of them, and you prove that you are really great in this. But you have to understand it, you have to use it in your seminar work, you have to quote some of the things, you have to read some articles. So what are the pros and cons of using this kind of alternate history or counterfactual history? What is the criticism to accept it, you know? So this is interesting thing that there are many things, the many ways how to make it, but still you have to defend yourself. And in this defense, when it's ready, when it's scientific, it's more valid and more reliable, and actually win the argument over the Facebook maybe. Okay, what else? Definitely you will work and you will have to talk about historical sources, of course, that you use. And you know that it can be anything that survived the past. Uh, you have to mention, because if you didn't, if you're not going to mention it, I shall ask you, are your sources primary or secondary? And you have to be sure whether they are direct or indirect. If I ask you, is it good that they are secondary or bad? And you have to explain, because it's not every time it's not good that primary source, because it's a diary that is out of Adolf Hitler, so probably Joseph Goebbels' diary would be like celebrating Nazism. You know, you need to compare them, and this is important thing. Of course, I will ask you about the form, and it should be like integral part of your seminar work that you still use these words: written sources, pictorial sources, artifacts, audiovisual, oral history. So to give us actually also the idea about the form of the material of the information you use. Don't forget about the limitations, of course, and work with them. And that's why to prove it, deny it, maybe to check it out whether it is true or not, you have to search and use many of them to find out the true depiction, more objective image. Okay, there are a couple of examples. Of course, we did it. I'm not going to come back to them. If you would like to ask about something, so just have it. Even Facebook stream is here, because now when we are recording this, actually to Microsoft stream, but many of them are over the Facebook, so you know they can track me. You remember working with the map of Slovakia. Okay, historians, definitely I will ask you, well, you have to tell us about the people whose books and websites and information they use, because they're not going to be probably only your findings, you know, your discoveries, but there should be also like other experts. And in this way, you have to prove us that you have knowledge about them, that you actually studied a lot. That's why tonight I gave you a couple of names, you know, of famous psychiatrists that I know, like from Nabielek to Mr. Vražda, and it's a cool name for psychiatrist, and maybe to Peter Hunčík, for example. And Anton Heretic is very famous with beautiful names. So in this way, you have to talk about them. Yeah, we analyze them. You remember that people who write, interpret, and explain history. Každý rok sa zo mňa si srandu robia, že či som historik, či som dejepisár, a vždycky to povedia naopak. Nie som historik, pretože nepíšem históriu. Netvorím, kebyže píšem knihu, tak áno. A treba mať samozrejme k tomu aj vzdelanie. So I'm just teacher of history right now. Interpret and explain history. So yeah, this is what Sheldon, find out the stuff that happened, remember it, and tell other people. Yeah, this is one possibility. But if we don't want to be like these guys, so you have to have a couple of things. So what makes a real historian, if you make a good one, if you made a good one, what are they like and what influences them? So you've, of course, knowledge, education, we pass it all. Ethics, moral, attitude, political opinions, religion, philosophy, education, society they live in. Okay, so there were all these things about historians we passed, and limitations again are the same. Again, it's good to read more books. At least if you don't have access to the books, Google this topic over the Wikipedia and read about various authors who are writing about this. And at least you're not going to read them because you don't have access to the book. Mention them that these guys are there, but you don't have access to the book. But they are there, and maybe in the future research, you are going to deal with them. Okay, this is very important part of your methodical part. Because I may ask you, okay, you talk about Second World War, you use Kamenec, but I shall ask you, did you read something about Martin Lacko, about these pro-fascist, historians? Because it's actually a big topic these days, and you have to prove us that you have knowledge about them and you can combine and compare them. So yeah, nice. What my friends think I do, that you're somewhere over the internet, and what my mom thinks I do sitting in the library, yeah, reenacting university, only giving speeches, but there is a lot of work behind what I think I do, consulting with other people face to face. But actually what I do, yeah, I experience similar things with piles of papers that I have to read. Okay, you remember this one, your historian, if you're still sad about the Library of Alexandria. Okay, from historians in here, you remember, not going to repeat the maybe it would be good to mention sometimes if you have similar topic, and when I talk about the psychiatrist thing, so probably again you have to go back in some theoretical part, maybe back to ancient Greeks, because ancient Greek philosophers invented all the sciences. So when we pass through maybe Middle Ages and early modern period, it come to 20th century, and various historians in here. Actually, before the quarantine and distance study, I had an agreement with Tono Hruboň that you're going to have this like online lecture with him about fascism. Okay, so I think we can move on. Pavel Dvořák, a tribute from him. Okay, histories. This is also a very important part that you should be clear about. You have to give us like clear terminology about, if you deal with universal, national, regional, personal history, if you deal with what were the parts of social, cultural, fashion. I believe none of you is dealing with Marxist history and so on. Be sure about what territory is there, or maybe about like micro histories in here. Biographies, autobiographies, macro history. Again, I think these are easy things, so we can just move on. Okay, we also analyze these like different points of views, of course, comparing the language in this thing. I believe that you can remember all of these and also the things. So what are the things? So the histories, okay, and historiography, actually the methods and the techniques of historical work. So writing about history is historiography, and that's methodology. So generally, if I have to summon, your work should contain something that maybe I can show you using this such part. If I have it in here, I believe, yeah. Organizational pokyny, okay, not very much. So that would be the previous bureaucracy. Sorry for delay. Okay, tvorba práce sočia. That would be the thing that even this is actually the same thing, and in this part, this should be important. Materiál, metodika. So when you said the introduction, some warm words about why, to give some introduction, and literature, problematics, theory, aim of the work, and methodology and material are actually part that you use. So again, I move to this part. Okay, what pokračovanie? And this is the thing. So this is very important. Theoretical or maybe literature, and you have to mention why you picked up and how you. Of course, you don't have to name all the books, but like generalize them. Like I use this kind of literatures, books and encyclopedias, like for example these two ones and so on. If you want to mention, then you can just like put this underline reference, under the line below. Okay, of course, the aim of the work is actually hypothesis for you, and material methodology is the thing that I'm going to ask you about. So characteristic of the object of research, how you describe the process of the work of the research to fulfill your goal, and you just talk about particular steps and methods and techniques that you used, of course. What else? Of course, there are some experiments, and this is very important part. Okay, so maybe that's the thing, and the results is different discussion and so on. Okay, I think that was the main part. That was the main part that I wanted to tell you. Of course, the aim of the history, there's also how to maybe how to perhaps create your own hypothesis. It can be very easy, like just to inform and to maybe entertain, give a speech, and let people know about this. Okay, so kind of information. So that was the thing. So don't forget about how it is being done, and okay, what was the meaning of history, that we change the future from. I think that you also you've seen this GIF from Futurama cartoon series. Okay, traveling the world and changing the future. Okay, also very famous George Santayana, American Hispanic philosopher and poet. Okay, with periodization, be sure that you actually know a lot about this. That you are in proper historical period and is in chronological way. Of course, with calendars, we don't need to repeat them because it's clear. Maybe I can ask you some things about Greek or Roman or Muslim or Chinese calendars when we have these topics from prehistory, and it seems that I have time also to start up maybe the other topic. So that is, if you ask like what was the point, how can you make it like easier? So that is the easier thing, that we are just jumping over this topic. Okay, if you're not sure, anytime just have a look in the chart I have in here for you. World and Slovak history for us. Don't forget that Marxist history is here just an example that used in old books made in Czechoslovakia, of course, but also how they saw it, and try to think like brand new history that should be according to their political and philosophical and economical opinions. Okay, so that would be part. Actually, today I have already met with this early modern period, that it's also like high modern period, and we are right now living in late modern period. So it's interesting to see when we realize that which of the milestones can we use. Okay, that was the part in the test. Definitely was there, remember. Okay, also science of history. Again, these things where I recommend you to study in case you will write a test. Čiže ak budeme mať ten test anglicky veľký, tako na štýl SAT, možno trošku testu, tak toto si treba dobre naštudovať. So don't forget about this. So what are these auxiliary sciences of history, including archaeology, historical geography, etymology, for example, and so on. Yeah, we did talk about heraldry a lot. I'm not going to repeat it. Rule of tincture and heraldic symbols, symbolism, semantics and semantism, and kind of things. Okay, this is very my popular part, Actually, somebody asked you, just remind you that actually our design of coat of arms is from Sigismund Luxemburg period, like first half of the 15th century. Where this coat of arms was standing alone for the first time as a obviously coat of arms, not only in the coins or municipal shields. Okay, an evolution of Czechoslovak and Slovak crosses and abuse of various political groups with Ladislav Retel too. Okay, for the quiz, vexillology about flags. more and more I realize how important it is, and maybe if you read the books from Premedia publishing house, the Slovak one, so even translating some of the books about flags and geography and symbols, and they prove to be really influential and important because people fight and die for them. So the evolution of all know it well. Socialist anarchist, Nazi flag to American one. This is something that you actually saw in the assault of Trump supporters on to the Capitol. And some people said that it's just like pride. Maybe the fans of Lynyrd Skynyrd rock band from Alabama or Tennessee, I can't remember, Texas, not sure. But still, it's like waving the flag of like maybe Imperial Germany. So what do you want to say? You like probably to come back these times, or what? It's about rock music, about riding the chopper motorcycle. So it's different. The same like with the Rastafarians. So probably if you wear these colors and Bob Marley T-shirts, so it's not only like smoking weed, but probably having some opinions about equality and peace within the world, and tolerance to other ethnic groups and races and so on. So a couple of examples that I gave also to young guys. I told you about the story of our logo of our school, examples of Banská Štiavnica coat of arms, UNESCO logos, and organization of historical towns. But also, you remember, maybe you've seen that I have these like memorial badges, and I still think about having these memorial badges even for you guys, like for the history. If you appreciate it, I'd not just let it be. Okay, from the others, from genealogy, genography, numismatics, diplomatics, you should be able, you definitely know about remember the subjects of matter. So what do they study? So sphragistics, topology and toponymy, philately, it's like old-fashioned right now, paleography, meteorology for medieval ancient styles. If some of you are going to study history, archaeology, or archives, archivistics, so what did you learn from auxiliary science of history? You got all of these only, not enough. Okay, and UNESCO, so that's the only part in here. And what else? That's all from the introduction. Still we got 18 minutes. Dobre, decka, ak máte nejaké otázky, kľudne sa spýtajte k tejto téme. Ak by ste nemali, tak ja prejdem na ďalšiu tému a v podstate veľmi rýchlo budeme postupovať týmito anglickými. V podstate ja vám ukážem poznámky, s ktorými preberám teraz, pretože za tie roky, čo ste v podstate to mali vy, za tie 3 roky, tak ja som veľa tých materiálov upravil, doplnil. Hlavne teraz, keď je dištančne, tak tie prvé prezentácie už sú dosť obohatené obrázky. Dobre? Takže ak vám to nevadí, ak nemáte žiadne otázky, vyzerá, že nikto sa nehlási ani nič, neozýva, tak išli by sme teda ďalej. Dobre, pôjdeme chronologicky. No a vám v podstate odporúčam si možno zapisovať, zopakovať tie veci, ktoré vám nie sú jasné, a po prípade pýtať sa veci, ktoré by ste chceli vedieť lepšie. Dobre, okay, so when we had this, I have to come back to history, and actually to this year, so 2029. I can already use it, it's easy peasy. Okay, so we had this introduction, not mentioning Banská Štiavnica, maybe the last lesson if we have time. That was the beginning for the prehistory. Definitely you will have this topic with this second part of your oral examination. And what was here? So maybe I can also show you the assignments that will be maybe interesting for you. For the second graders, poor second graders, they were complaining about me. Okay, so with an introduction, the assignment for them, for example, was not so bad, I would say. Like picking some historians. Actually, they had many things before, so historical artifacts from home and describe them. For them, maybe pick up some books from various publishing houses or bookshops and pick up what would they like to read and why. Very short interview with some of their relatives about family history and traditions and so on. Yeah, etymology of the surnames, that was also interesting for the guys. Proposal, and also the flags and coat of arms of their village or town, and family tree. All the things that were pretty easy. Currencies of Slovakia and Hungary. Watch only one movie. They were, so yeah, picking up the hoax, the best hoax of the year. That was really cool. Okay, so some interesting coats of arms and flags, so really easy, some timeline, and some quizzes, and UNESCO side, which also picking up the best one. So pretty easy. They were not complaining so much. The most they complain about proposal of UNESCO trip, but for the prehistory, and this is interesting. For the prehistory, I get them like a lot of stuff to watch and to draw, especially because what can second graders do? Only like read, watch, and draw. So there are a couple of slides that they have to describe and explain, and you are going to see that. And of course, then set. And this is something that I would recommend you to do it too. For example, draw yourself with something you have you like, in proper with proper artifacts, clothing, environment around, from Paleolithical, Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon people, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Analytic, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and Great Migrations or Roman era. That is the same thing. So that is really cool thing, and a couple of movies, and some of them were watching older movies because they didn't read, because you have to be really careful about what you read. Watch these movies, or at least trailers of them. But they were complaining they had to watch all the movies, of course, so I have to show it to Miss Pajicka to persuade her that they are liars, not me. Okay, so there are some things, and of course, one map is great, map is good, and they had to visit also some archaeological site and take a photo there. So what is there? So you see that you can actually apply many things, even with prehistory, and sometimes it's really difficult. So 13 minutes, so let's have a look at it. So you know it very well, and the first thing, introduction, was The Simpsons, and probably see these couch gags from the beginning, and they had to describe the phases of Homer Simpson being like evolved during the history. So actually, this is spot about like these early Cenozoic periods with the oceans and early land animals, reptiles. Jurassic part, of course. I'm not sure if you hear the music, so sorry if it is too loud. Yeah, and the meteorite coming. Yeah, that's the right hitting, and only small mammals survived, and now we have anthropogenesis already. So from Homo erectus, Homo habilis, mouse coming back. Yeah, from like Bronze Age and Middle Ages, early modern period, yeah, 19th century, and to what would March say? Did you bring the milk? Okay, so that was the thing for them. Okay, main theories of emergence of life and its evolution. So if you remember, that was the thing that we actually don't know how life appeared, how life emerged. There is only one real scientific theory. It's called abiogenesis, where they got a video about it, and they actually paid promo. So actually, this is also a cool guy. This Indian. Uh, that that is similar to educational to John Green, but not so funny. And I would say they're much more scientific. So they actually, in chemical way, they explain how it can be possible, how it can be possible for this. And still, we don't know. And people who are believers, they say that even they come to the point of changing inorganic matter to organic matter, there must be some moment, some sparkle, some electric move, and that is like the touch of the god or some divinity, that is in here. Okay, I'll show you more videos, so let's just come back. uh okay, the other things are about how this life, either it appeared, it emerged in the earth, on the earth, or maybe on the other planet, or maybe comet, for example, or moon. So then there is how the life spread it throughout the universe and to our planet. And that's the point about biogenesis, and especially panspermia and directed panspermia, which are again the things that how the asteroid that can carry some of the living material, organic material from other planets and moons can hit the Earth and bring in, so this life can appear in here. So another video about panspermia was in here, astrofocus. So this would be more about history. Okay, so couple of things. Okay, some ladies talking, beautiful. So how it is possible in astronomical way? So this is history too. That you need to know a lot about physics, for example, maybe about chemistry, and for everything you just need language. Okay, so this is what poor second graders had to watch and give some like fun facts, what was surprising for them or not. Actually, then in the biogenesis turned into Darwinism or Darwin's evolutional theory, that he wrote the famous book, The Origin of Species, that he wrote after the voyage to the Galapagos Islands. And he described it and how this biogenesis can work, how evolution can. Of course, he had to add many things that were there to prove it, make it like more valid and so on. Still, we talk about mid of 19th century, so there were many things that were not known at that time, and some people say that it actually doesn't work on Darwin's principles. On the other hand, still, and he had big troubles with this, that you know it, that there was another theory about emergence of life, and it's actually religious belief, which is called creationism, and it's actually kind of opposition, but it's not scientific opinion, scientific hypothesis. It's just religious belief that life was created by some supernatural being. I think that this was also the short video about Darwin, and I think that was John Green's brother. Yeah, that's his brother. So, okay, so let it be. Let it be. That was for second graders, not for you. I got 8 minutes. I have to check it out. Okay, you maybe remember that I told you about so-called the monkey trial, that in USA 1920s, there was kind of disagreement between the school in one town in Tennessee, I believe, and how the local priests, evangelicals, were angry about the biology teacher who was teaching about Darwin's evolutionary theory, and then the trial, the jury had to decide whether it is okay to teach it or not at schools. And because the city was pretty religious, I would say at the time, so the judge didn't want to decide properly, and actually it could be kind of a precedence for other judges and other trials elsewhere in the United States of America. So suddenly this trial turned out to be one of the biggest trials of USA of those times, still very funny, and they had like the best lawyers of USA and arguing, talking, and actually in the end mocking the guy, the old lawyer attorney who was defending this creationism. So in the end, the judge decided that he can teach the evolution theory, but he have to pay fine like $50 or how many. And they say that it's upon the local municipality. So since the time, in every town, every region in USA, there had to be these kind of trials where creationists were arguing with how to say evolutionists, and you have actually schools in USA today that that it cannot be told that uh, we are from monkeys or apes or primates. Of course, not the same because we're evolving different ways. So that was the monkey trial, and actually it was similar to something that Charles Darwin himself had to describe. That look into the mirror. That what are the differences between you and me, guys? Okay, kids had to explain also, for example, this cartoon. These cartoons. So much for today's biology lesson on intelligent design. That is like nice name for the God turning now to the subject of intelligent geography. It's flat earth, you know. So this is kind of thing that you have to, whether we can or cannot accept opinions that are not based upon scientific research, because you know you saw it over the Facebook very often that people, you cannot like judge me because it's my opinion, it's somebody's pride, it's my own way, you know. But in this case, from like intelligent design to vaccination to the flat earth, uh, you know, it's like maybe gathering more and more people and they can vote one day. So in this way, I also speak about this ironic reaction of some of these uh, uh, evolutionists, or maybe guys who were against creating the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, that they claim that they are creationists, but not the god or some like gods, but this flying spaghetti monster created the world, and believers are wearing the silk, you know, on their head. And that was actually a famous case in Austria that finally they allowed him to have it. Uh, okay, still, endless forms with the most beautiful, most wonderful have been and are being evolved by Charles Darwin. He himself, he was actually a believer, and he said it like in the fourth edition that if of the original species, that there is like nothing to hesitate about, nothing to deny about evolution, but also the first sparkle, the first move, in his opinion, it was done by the God. So that was interesting because Charles Darwin was creationist. Okay, still, what else? You may have like very short thing, but I don't have to learn it at all. You can just open the atlas. In every good atlas at oral examination, you'll have chance to see them. Uh, just talk about various and read about various periods of evolution of the life and thus the planet actually. So from the Archean age, Proterozoic, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic, these kind of charts can be really helpful. How from like oceans they derived in more complicated forms, and how their environment was changing and more species moved to land and to the air, and also the insects and the plants, and finally humans appearing in here with about like 2-3 million years ago. Okay, what else? A couple of pictures for each period that were by famous Zdeněk Burian, Czechoslovak painter, passionate archaeologist, one of the guys who motivated also the movie Cesta do Pravieku. If you've seen this 1950s movie, the most favorite movie of Steven Spielberg is by Karel Zeman, and motivated by these beautiful posters of Karel Zeman. Okay, one of the examples of Paleozoic era from Pangaea, Eurasia, Gondwana to other continents, and also the reason why some animal species are in here. So a couple of more pictures and more examples. That was really fun to look for these early animals and so on. From Mesozoic period, Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. Couple of pictures, of course, like idealistic, but only to show as many species as possible. And even Cenozoic period after the extinction of dinosaurs in here. Then we have another period when they were actually super predators on the earth, where these giant birds, like it was not fun. Look at this antelope, you know, just small one. And what else? Then there were a period of huge mammals like megafauna, but these guys they got extinct because then yeah, the primates came, and since they after their evolution they came to this. So another video in here, I got only 1 minute, so that would be the end of the lesson for today. The next time we go to anthropogenesis within the prehistory. And in this video, kids had to describe and give also well, this really actually really funny thing about history of the earth. And today YouTube is excellent source of the information, but again you have to be really careful about the reliability, validity of the things. So within 9 minutes, this is from movie Lucy, Scarlett Johansson. Okay, but I found this like really like valid and okay to watch. So history of the earth in 9 minutes, guys, and that would be all from me, guys. So na budúcu hodinu teda, decka, pôjdeme takto týždeň ďalej na právek. už budeme mať po písomke veľkej. Od vás myslím, že jeden človek nemá dopísané to intro ešte, takže vás to ešte čaká. No, čo na záver? To je asi všetko. Držte sa, decká, stay positive in mind, negative in tests, and stay safe, guys, and have a beautiful weekend. Bude nádherný, bude krásne, tu fučí, mrzne, čiže bude nádherná viditeľnosť. Ak sa dá, choďte trošku aj von, ale neprechladnite. Dobre, takže majte sa a nezabudnite, decka, sa odhlásiť, kliknúť na leave, kliknúť na toto tlačítko leave, dobre? A to je všetko z mojej strany. Dobre, majte sa, have a nice day, have a nice weekend, bye bye.
You too, bye.
Thank you, goodbye.
Goodbye.